Greetings and salutations, folks, and it's I, your host, Son of Kane, coming back at you today. Today we are talking The Sandlot. I saw this movie in theaters when it came out. I watch it every summer. That is not a joke. As a kid, it was another one of those movies like Bill and Ted and Home Alone and Ghostbusters that I had on repeat. I watched The Sandlot a lot. I started playing baseball from the age of 5, where I played t-ball, all the way up to the age of 14. I think the reason The Sandlot works is because it is something that up until recently most kids had in common. We all played outside, we all played ball, we all had these pockets of our childhood where there were certain groups of people that just stick out in our minds as that was our friend group at that time. I know I do. And regardless as to if you were on a team, quote unquote, or if you just played at the dirt lot like these kids did, I feel like this is something that generations can speak to. I mean, kids of the 50s and 60s, they definitely did this. Kids of the 70s and 80s did this. I did this in the late 90s, or in the 90s. And I think that's why this movie still resonates, is because there's still enough of us from those generations that remember playing outside, playing in the dirt before the age of video games. Yes, I grew up with video games. I'm not saying I didn't, but my point is, my parents still made me go outside. And this movie speaks to that. It's such an imaginative, heartfelt movie that I can't help but think not just of my childhood when I watch it, but of specific pieces, specific chunks of my childhood. I remember the friend that I went and saw this movie with. I also happened to see it with my cousin. I remember that too. I remember that we saw it at the discount theater instead of the full price theater, because it had already been out for a while at that point. I remember that the second the VHS came out, my dad rented it for me, and a couple of months or maybe a year later, he bought me a copy for my birthday. This is one of those movies that, if I didn't wear out the VHS, I certainly came very close to, because I watched it that often. And I think that as an adult, it still resonates, because the fact that you tend to look back on those moments of your childhood that this movie is so beautifully painting with nostalgic eyes. And that's why I think this movie has lasted for the people who grew up with it and for people who didn't necessarily grow up with it, because you look back at who you were versus who you are, and you think to yourself, you know, I wonder what's happened with that person. And, you know, maybe you look them up online to see what you can find out. You know, I think it's interesting how a movie like The Sandlot and a movie like, say, Stand By Me have very similar qualities in that respect, because both those movies end with us finding out what happened to all those kids. And I feel like the older I get, the more I think to myself, I wonder what happened to those years and those people from those years. This movie is the film equivalent, on some level, of a show like The Wonder Years. My favorite moment from this movie is the moment where Scotty Smalls is learning how to throw and catch from Benny while the game is going on. Because it speaks to how all it takes is that one person to reach out and bring you into something really special. I'm your host, Son of Kane, and I hope you enjoyed this review of The Sandlot. If you did, don't forget to click like, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to click that bell notification so you know every time Son of Kane has a new video uploaded. Don't forget to share this on all your social media platforms in an effort to help me grow my channel. And I'll see you next time at the video store.